say good morning to everybody. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak a little bit about crop insurance. This is something that has been available to the farming ranching community for quite a few years now. I've been in the business for about 30 years, and these are products that are offered by USDA or RMA Risk Management. It's an equal opportunity program so that everybody has the opportunity to participate in these programs. These are all government subsidized programs. They're set up by our risk management. In these programs, they're designed to help offset the risk factor when you're actually trying to input costs into your commodity crops, multiple crops such as cotton, corn, grain, sorghum. We have here in South Texas a great opportunity to basically run a farm and ranch operations 12 months of the year. I personally enjoy the 9-month summers that we have. Our winters seem to be spring summers, but at the same token, it gives us the opportunity to plant different varieties of crops. We have our spring crops, we have our fall crops, we have our wintering crops. With the crop insurance, it helps to offset some of the major costs that it takes to produce some of these commodities. For anybody that has never been farming, please understand this is a type of business that has more passion to it in the returns compared to other types of businesses, but it can be very volatile when you're dealing with the inputs that are being placed to produce some of these crops. So to offset some of that risk, Federal Crop has designed these programs to help alleviate some of the problems that come with farming and ranching here in South Texas. As they set up their programs, you need to understand that the crop insurance program, depending on the type of commodity you're working with, typically this time of year through the month of January, we are actually enlisting anybody that would like to participate in commodity crops such as cotton, corn, or grain. We have an insurance period that will end on January the 31st. So if you are interested in insuring any type of these specific types of commodities, your sales closing period will be on January 31st. What we have for spring crops, we have fall crops. To give you an example, some of our vegetables like cabbage and onions, those are considered fall crops. Planting periods are during the fall. Sales closing period for cabbages in July. For onions, we have one in August, I believe. And then we have our ranchland products, which are for the ranching community. We have pastures. We have one that's called PRF, Pasture Rangeland Forage. But let me get back for a little bit to our commodities, starting with the springs, only because it's very important that if you are wanting to plant or you are farming into your spring crops, such as cotton, corn, and grain, you have soybeans. I forgot to mention the soybeans. We have sesame. And there's some other crops in there. We have the RMA webpage. I can get that email address if you want to get a list of all of the commodities that are listed on there. But the most important thing is to understand if you want to get some very detailed information, you really need to contact a crop insurance agent. There are several in the Valley. I just happen to be one of them. We're representing the private sector of the insurance, which is being assisted through RMA, which helps the producer pay the premium. That's called a subsidy. And in that subsidy, it helps every producer that's participating in the crop insurance pay for the premium. So it makes it reasonable. You have different coverages that will cover irrigated land on your commodity crops. You have a dry land that'll help you on that. There's 6 different ways of covering this just on one of their products, which is called a YP, yield protection. We have a revenue product on the crop insurance. So I don't want to spend a lot of time explaining to you the individual crops, but I would like you to understand that you have the opportunity to participate in them. Timing is very important that you understand. For instance, and I'll mention it again, January the 31st. It's extremely important to visit with a crop insurance agent so that you can get informed as to what is required for that. We also have our sales closing dates for the crops that are coming up in the fall, such as the cabbage or the onions. We have sugarcane insurance. If you remember, we had this hard freeze back in February. Any of our citrus growers, it was very devastating. They lost a lot of their grapefruit, oranges, their trees. I'm sure many of you have seen the devastation that freeze did, and yet we hadn't had a hard freeze since 1989. If they had their crop insurance in place, there's different ways of purchasing the levels of coverage that you feel comfortable with. This morning, I want to talk a little bit about a product that Aisha asked me to speak on. It's called Whole Farm Revenue Protection. This is a product that was developed a few years ago. It actually covers anything that you're producing on your farm that is related to agriculture. It could be jalapenos, it could be corn, it could be squash, it could be watermelons. You need to get informed in detail, and I really wouldn't have enough time to explain to you all the nuts and bolts of what you would need to do. But I can tell you that if you participate in it, I believe the premiums are reasonable, but there's information that has to be provided. And that's where, if you sit down with an agent that you feel comfortable, you have to be able to be comfortable to ask questions, how it works, what is required. There's on insurance, there's never an insurance policy that you can just sit down and get a quote that'll take you 10 minutes to write in crop insurance. It is very entailed. But at the end of your session, when you're meeting with your insurance agent, you should be able to be comfortable enough to know the types of coverages that you're acquiring, what your premium cost is. On the whole farm revenue protection, this product, again, if you wanted to participate in it, you have until January the 31st. It's a policy that guarantees you revenue based on all the commodities combined. Recently, not only do we have the whole farm, this would entail something that could cover you up to $18 million of coverage. It's a really good program. It's a national program. But for the smaller operations, people with smaller acreage, small farms, mom and pop type programs, they just developed one. It's called a micro farm program. I believe the paperwork on this one here, it's much easier to process, but it entails time. And if you're spending time, quality time doing your investment on the seed, you're doing your homework on the type of exposures you're going to have, the expenses you're going to have. I'm very familiar with this because I'm a farmer myself. I run 150 acres that I inherited from my father. And I get excited about being on my farm, but again, I share with you, it can get very expensive. If you're running a micro farm program, this might be a product that might be work well for you. On this one here, it's just, in a simple term, it's a micro farm program versus the whole farm revenue. Aisha asked me about this program, and I didn't even mention that we have the micro farm program, which is a little bit easier to work with for the smaller operators. You might have a commodity of just jalapenos and squash. You need to get the details. I'll ask Aisha to go ahead, and we can maybe do it on the question answers, how to contact a crop insurance agent or get more informed about it. This is a program that is subsidized by the government, so they make the rules. The private carriers are just the delivery system. I've had questions and concerns about how the programs work sometimes, and we're always adjusting, or not us, but the federal government is always trying to adjust to make the programs better, more efficient. We have a product called PRF, Pasture Rangeland Forage for the ranchers. This is a policy that's insuring against index. It's a rainfall value. If you don't get the normal rainfalls, you can qualify for a payment. It's been a very good program. If you're in the ranching communities, it guarantees you a type of payment that you could receive if you are not getting the normal rainfalls that you normally would in your specific area. That one has a sales closing date of December 1st. Uh, we have a product, it's called Annual Forage for producers that are doing the hay grazers, uh, commodities that you're going to plant and you're going to remove as a hay grazer. You intend to bale it, irrigated or dry land. There's different categories. You can insure as well. There's a whole host of products that you, depending on what you're interested in, or if you're a new farmer, new producer, you get a discount. If you're a veteran farmer, where you've been in the service in the military, there are discounts in there. The conformity of how these programs work, many types of adjustment. That's why I put the emphasis. You want to be able to talk to a crop insurance agent that you're comfortable with and asking questions. If you need to speak to somebody in Spanish because you only speak Spanish, or you have difficulty understanding English, the government provides assistance to help make sure that you have the same opportunities, even if you don't speak English or very good English, to help you understand what the types of programs that are coming available to you. As Aisha asked me to break down into some of this information, she was asked me to kind of speak a little bit about it. I want to put the emphasis. I cannot, or I would not try to explain to you one of these programs in detail because they can get very entailed, and everybody's operations are different. I would strongly encourage you, if you are farming, if you're interested in farming, if you want to be a new farmer, young farmers, it's a way of leveraging your risk. When you're planting watermelons, that can get really expensive. There's a couple of programs out there. One of them is called NAP through FSA. Whole farm would fit into this as well. You have concerns about what you're insuring against as far as your crop insurance goes. All weather-related incidents, excess rain, excess heat, excess drought. There's conditions out here where sometimes we have irrigation on our farm operations, and we run out of water. Water is a very big critical issue that we deal with all the time. Our reservoirs the last 2 years have been very low, and so we're dealing with situations where you're a farmer, you're an irrigated farmer, and you're not able to have sufficient water to irrigate. The policy can cover what they call a preventive planting situation, not because you don't want to plant, but you don't have the water availability. If you're a dryland farmer and you can't plant because it's so dry that it's powder out there. I've been out here in some of these big ranches like in Stark County, and the wind is blowing and blowing and blowing, and you can't plant because it's too dry. You could get a potential payment for not being able to plant. It's called preventive planting. We've had conditions where we have too much rain. If you remember here in 2020, 21 here in the springtime, it was extremely dry. We had a hurricane, and then it went extremely dry, and it was dry until April. In April, it started raining, then we had too much rain. So you have a cost of loss predicament with excess moisture to it. Unforeseen situations. In 1995, I was a few years into this business, and we had a worm infestation. It actually affected the whole state of Texas. It affected irrigated, it affected dryland farmers. For those that the coverage is in place, they were protected. Is it perfect? No, but we're doing the best we can to try to transfer some of the risks that you have in your farm operations, your ranching operations. We have one product that a lot of people aren't even familiar with. Is apiculture, I'm sorry. Apiculture, it's honeybees. Interesting product, but again, if you have any type of specific risk that you'd like to cover, you can call me. Federal Crop has a listing of all the agents in the valley. It's following the guidelines. It's a USDA program. If you don't haven't heard about some of these products that I mentioned, you'd like to know more, Aisha, you got my number, my contact information. Give me a call. Uh, that's what I got, Aisha, as far as the coverages that we have here. If there's any questions, I can try to answer them. If not, afterward, we can try to do more detail, a better job of explaining detail.
Yeah, so we have some questions, Mr. Villanueva. Hi, I'm Colin. It's very nice to meet you over the Zoom. Thank you so much for that super presentation. And we have a bunch of questions here, just in a broad sense, because I think a lot of people, a lot of the participants on this call right now might find themselves somewhere between a backyard gardener hobbyist and then starting to get into some direct sales, some commercial production, either in a sort of plot, maybe it's adjacent to their property, maybe it's some land that they rent. Like, as people are sort of verging towards like full scale commercial production, when do you think is the right time for people to really think about risk management products, about insurance products? Like, when does that calculus start to really make sense for you?
Okay, Colin, as a farmer myself, you start thinking about, I want to get buy a piece of land with 10 acres on it. I thought it was very interesting, the meeting we had earlier with the high barns in there and closed farms. You're going to purchase land. You're going to purchase a tractor or a planter. You start thinking about how are you going to finance most of this type of equipment that you're going to be using. The number one question, any loan capacity type of a bank or the John Deere, they're going to ask for insurance. What type of insurance are you going to have? What is the purpose of insurance? Is to transfer the risk for an unforeseen situation that can give you recovery on that. If you do it where you do self-finance, you're absorbing the full loss if you can afford to do that. But if you're thinking about getting into a type of farming, when would be the right time? Probably when you're thinking about the concept of what you want to plant, how you want to plant. Are you going to need to purchase the land and purchase a tract, start from ground zero? Maybe you want to buy a ready-made farm, but at any given point that you're going to start investing, you have to be calculating your risk involved. And that's when you want to start looking at the insurance coverages that you're able to buy. So I would say it's right at the front when you're thinking about what you would like to invest into or aggressively pursue. How can you protect it?
That's interesting. So when there's actual significant financial investment involved, especially when there are third parties, when there are banks, when there are lenders that actually require those insurance products to be there to kind of guarantee that there's going to be some income come heck or high water, then those insurance products are really going to be essential. But even before that, what you're saying is like when that planning stage is sort of happening, that's where you should really investigate what products are out there and what products might fit the context of that particular grower. So for example, for you were a sort of private insurance agent. So I included a link in the chat for the different USDA RMA insurance products. So for you, do you work with all of those products? Is it more common to see a sort of specialization in certain programs?
Basically, what I have really worked aggressively, and I'll give you a list of the commodities I work with: cotton, corn, grain, sorghum, soybeans, sesame seeds, citrus trees, sugarcane, onions, cabbage, as the commodities on your standard row cropping type of stuff we're working with. The last 10 years, we have aggressively been putting coverages on pastures, hay fields, very interesting commodities. Recently, we started with annual forage. You notice that with these droughts, we have very bad droughts. A lot of people are planting hay, forage fields. So this annual forage is a really good product. That's the list. Now, there are more things that are insured. The whole farm and the micro farm are actually kind of the newer products, because these are actually inclusively bringing everything that is not under your standard commodity crop programs.
Right.
And these are actually revenue products that if for some unforeseen situation, your financial just goes kaput due to weather or pricing, these are very interesting products. So, but these are fairly new.
Does that then take finding the right agent that is familiar with that program, that wants to work with that program, to engage that agent that sort of understands how it works? Or pretty much like you and most of the other insurance agents, either in South Texas or that cover their state, they're going to be able to sort of issue a policy under that program? like the whole
Well,
farm revenue?
I buy insurance like you do, Colin. Whether you're buying car insurance, house insurance, health insurance, you don't want to feel dumb asking a question.
Of course.
So I would strongly recommend if you contact an agent, you want to be comfortable asking them questions. And if you're not comfortable, you might want to talk to somebody else because especially with these government subsidized programs, there's a lot of information that goes with them. And you want to be comfortable asking questions. If you're not, I'd say, you might want to talk to a different agent. I'm not promoting anybody. I'm just saying as a buyer, as a consumer, you have a concept and idea. You want to go plant a bunch of pickles. Okay, but how are you going to transfer that risk? And so you're buying an insurance policy. That's what these are,
Right.
insurance. So
Right.
with dealing weather-related incidences, you want to know, are you getting a price protection? Are you securing against a name peril such as drought on the PRF policies? Because like that policy is specific to drought, and that's all that's covering.
Right.
There's other types of insurance that you buy for risk management. You might be looking at a farm and ranch policy for liability protection. You got cattle and they get off, they break through the fence, or the fence
Right.
comes down. Unforeseen situations. So
Right.
as an investor, as a farmer, as a rancher, you want to have the right products to protect you.
Right. And that, in your experience, are producers, are they buying multiple policies to cover multiple levels of risk or areas of risk for their farm? Like, so for example, they have a few commodities, but maybe they also have a little bit of they have some cattle, but they're engaging in some sort of quasi agritourism where they're having people do some sort of pick your own, or they're hosting weddings or something like that. That seems like that would be multiple policies rather than sort of one like omnibus policy that covers everything. Is that basically right?
Well, yes. What you have is multiple programs going on. You're going to need, there's not a program to cover everything. There is
Right.
not one
Okay.
insurance policy to take care of everything. You want to do cotton, you want to insure your cotton. You got a pasture, you want to insure the pastures. We have a product I didn't mention, which was LRP for cattle, livestock risk protection. Who was going to buy that? Somebody that's raising cattle to specific sizes. Really good program, but it's specific to pricing. You have to be in the cattle business. But at the same token, you might be having your hay fields where you're haying them, and we have a different product sold at a specific time frame where you can purchase. It just works totally different than your LRP program.
Right. Then we have a bunch of questions coming in here about really specific production methods. So for example, we just had a presentation from Juan on growing in hoop houses, which is usually done on smaller plots. But then we also have questions about aquaculture, about hydroponic, people growing hydroponically. Would there be specific policies for that type of growing, or would really specific production techniques or methods fall under a different sort of broader policy?
It's down specifically to the type of commodity that you have. If you're producing cotton, you're going to get your GIN records. If you're producing grain, you're at the elevator. If you're producing citrus, you're going to be producing records from the packing sheds. To validate a whole farm, micro farm, some of the stuff we may have to come back and ask RMA. Well, this is the type of production records that are being provided to us. Are they acceptable? Documentation is extremely important on either one of these programs, the micro farm or the whole farm. It takes a while to put it together, but then you have to kind of train yourself how to make sure you can provide documentation, accurate production records. So again, that kind of goes into one of those environments where, is this acceptable or not?
Right.
In today's technology, you can do a spreadsheet, you can do an Excel sheet, you're going to create okay, now is RMA going to accept that? Typically, you need to have a third party.
Right.
I sold it I got some fruit or vegetables. I sold them to a fruit stand down the street. Okay, what type of commodity receipts did they give you? And sometimes it can be simple. Sometimes it can be more restrictive depending on what the commodity or the value of the risk is.
Right.
Good question.
That makes sense. Yeah, we only have a couple more minutes here. So we have a couple of questions that have to do about finding an insurance agent. So I'm in the Valley. I think you're in the Valley as well, or at least South Texas.
Yes, I'm in Edinburgh,
Um,
Texas.
How would people find who is the right sort of insurance agent for the particular product or service they want? Is there a place where people can find it's like a list or a clearinghouse for insurance agents that work with these policies? And then a follow-up, if you can work it in, is some people are asking about Spanish proficiency, because we have a sort of mix here in the audience. Some people who prefer just Spanish and others that would be in between. Do you speak Spanish? Can people reach out to you if they have Spanish only questions? Or where can they find other agents that might be working with these products and can help them out?
Okay, well, I happen to be bilingual, so I can fit both categories. I've been in the
Excellent.
business a long time, so I have a good grasp of how to ask a specific question, whether it's in Spanish or in English. There is, through the carriers, part of the training that we get on the update trainings, that if for some reason you walk into an agency and they're not proficient in the language, they can get an interpreter through RMA. On the RMA website, I don't have it with me, but I can get it to Aisha, where if anybody wants to look at the local agents, I happen to find myself on one of these pages. I don't remember where I was that I was looking for it, but I was curious about a listing for agents in South Texas. And I'm like, hey, let's see how RMA has me listed. Oh, there I am. I didn't know I was even
Excellent.
listed on the federal page. So there is listings out there. There's about 15 carriers. Those are private carriers. They're contracted to do the delivery systems for federal crop. And then the AIPs, these carriers are contracting agents that are across the nation.
Okay. It seems like, Mr. Villanueva, our time is up. Thank you so much for joining us. You've been fantastic.